Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Red Bull Ring for the second of 3 races this weekend in the Radical European Masters. It's an absolutely glorious day here, and we have got the 4.3 kilometre challenge for the cars for the next 60 minutes or so. So it's a very warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans. Alongside me is Will Brown from Radical. And well, Will, yesterday we had a really dramatic race that was claimed eventually by Jack Bartels and Stuart Mosley, but a late safety car turned it into a sudden one-lap sprint.
Yes, yeah, that's right. With the demise of Victor Correa late in the stages, and it looks like we've got a car missing from the front row there. That's Ross Kaiser doesn't seem to have taken up his grid position.
No, so in pole position for today is James Swift, and James essentially had yesterday's race wrapped up until something went very wrong for him. The car caught ablaze. The mechanics done a great job to repair it overnight. And James, in time-honoured fashion, got out of the car and gave it a good kick, which didn't solve the fire, but was thoroughly cathartic. And so he starts from pole, and with the success seconds through the pit stop equalisation, then that really plays into his hands. Alongside him on the front row of the grid should have been the 88 car of Ross Kaiser and Terence Woodward, but they are not there. Lining up in third place is Manhal Alos, and Manhal, well, yesterday that was really his race to win, but it didn't quite happen. He made a mistake going into turn 8, repeated it into turn 9, tried to repair it into turn 1 and spun away his chance. In fact, Alos starts from 4th, because this is how they should line up then. Terence Woodward on pole, but he's not there, so it's James Swift in second. The second row of the grid is Jack Bartels, yesterday's winner, and Manhal Alos. Then we've got John Harrison and James Abbott on row 3, Alain Costa and Chris Hoyt on the 4th row, Jeremy Ferguson, Jean Gandar next up, and then Marco Cenchetti and Ricardo Dona, the pair of them, to the 4 of the Supersport class. Head Vandy Cummings, Yanni Hupia, Shahi Nouri and Roger Bromley. We're not sure whether or not he is going to be there. It is an hour-long race, and they must have that mandatory pit stop at some point during the middle third of the race. And we should explain briefly, Will, the way that success is balanced out in the Radical European Masters is with additional seconds to the mandatory minimum pit stop time.
So based on the previous 2 results that their finishing positions in the previous 2 races in the championship, a first place finish gives you an extra 20 seconds in your pit stop, second 15, third 10, and then fourth and fifth 5 seconds.
Now, I just caught a glimpse then of Terence Woodward at the end of the pit lane. I suspect he might have just missed the pit lane closing.
I think you're right there, absolutely. So, yeah, he's going to have a real battle on his hands to fight through the grid. But they did really well to get 4th position yesterday, as you say, in all the action, and the safety car period really mixed things up. But no, Ross Kaiser, his driving partner's pace has undoubtedly been the quickest of the weekend. So, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting race.
Well, there is the red car of yesterday's 3rd place finisher, Chris Hoy, the legendary Olympic cyclist who has been receiving congratulations on social media for the great good of international sport overnight, because Mark Webber, one of many to weigh in with the congratulations. It was a fine drive from Chris yesterday, particularly as in that one-lap sprint we had through to the flag, he was under pressure from this car with Ross Kaiser at the wheel.
Yeah, so you see they're just waiting for the grid to clear. I thought he would have made it out to the back of the grid there, but no, it looks like they're going to be held all the way until the rolling start.
So it is, of course, a rolling start for the Radical European Masters. The Red Bull Ring, if you've never watched racing here before, is a relatively recent circuit. It was this current layout constructed in the mid-1990s, then fell into a little bit of disrepair before being reinvigorated back in 2011. It's a very enjoyable circuit for the drivers, undulating across the Austrian countryside. A lot of high-speed straights, sharp braking zones, and also quite a few mid-speed corners as well, midway through the lap. So they're just taking the opportunity to get a little bit of heat into the tyres ahead of the rolling start. There are 3 classes to watch for. There is the Masters class, which is for the SR8s, and the Spiders, the Supersport class, for the various derivations of the SR3. And then also we will keep our eye on the Fangio Trophy, which is for the drivers who have got more experience in years than some of the others. And so lots of different battles to watch for as the race unfolds. So James Swift has decided to stake the claim to be alone on the front row by parking his car pretty squarely in the middle of the road as they head downhill through turn 8.
And Yap's got a fantastic opportunity here. He's got the whole shot all the way to the first corner there, and as we saw the car scatter yesterday, everyone did a fantastic job to remain relatively clean through that first corner, so let's hope for the same today.
So here we go then, out of the final turn, waiting for the red lights to change. We're about to go racing in the Radical European Masters for the second time this weekend, and away we go. And it's James Swift who jumps clear. John Harrison gets the jump on Jaap Bartels, so as they charge towards the first turn, it's Swift who snatches a break. Alos in second, Harrison third, then it's Bartels and Costa disputing fourth. Chris Hoy runs wide as the field surge uphill for the first time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Harrison did a really good job there to get a march on Jaap, who's dropped back to fifth now.
Now, the other car to watch for in terms of the success seconds is going to be John Harrison, because he has got the least time of anybody after the retirement from Victor Crea late on yesterday. So John Gandar gets pushed down a little bit wide by Ricardo Dona, who is ahead of the Supersport battle, just clear of Shaheen Nouri and Andy Cummings. Meanwhile, James Abbott looks to line up the move on Jaap Bartels into turn 3. Bartels shuts the door as Abbott was already committed, had to back out of that one. And then they have got Jeremy Ferguson closing up onto their tail, and also Chris Hoy, part of that scrap from 5th through to 8th.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be deceived by the what you're seeing on the pitches here. It's not the widest of Grand Prix circuits here, so overtaking can be tricky. There's a couple of key points that we saw yesterday where overtaking was possible, and it seemed that turn 2 was certainly one of the best places with these cars, with the Spiders being able to brake so late into that versus the SR8. We saw some really exciting battles coming out of that hairpin.
So here is the third place car of John Harrison. He has got Alain Costa tucked up onto his tail, and Alain, another driver who has been going well this year. That's our Supersport leader. In fact, Marco Ciancetti, who's broken clear of Ricardo Dona, and the rest of them is already across the line. Swift leads from Alos, 1.1 seconds his advantage, then a gap of a couple of seconds back to Harrison and Costa, and then we've got Jaap Bartels still with James Abbott on his tail, and then Jeremy Ferguson being chased by Chris Hoy. We get into the Supersport cars, and Ciancetti, as Abbott now has another run on Jaap Bartels as they climb uphill. Now, turn 2 you can overtake, but you've got to make sure you get your move done nice and early. Abbott looks to the inside, but he can't quite squeeze through.
Yeah, and you saw Jaap ran out wide there to give himself the optimum line on the exit, and that worked really well. And likewise, it looks like Hoy's starting to line up Ferguson as well for a pass.
Yeah, but Abbott has got a very good run on Bartels as they head downhill towards turn 3, and this time James Abbott has got the racing line, but Jaap Bartels has got the commitment on the brakes, squeezes Abbott out. Abbott then looks for the switchback as they swoop down through turn 4. Can't quite make it happen. This is really nice defensive driving from Jaap Bartels. He's just got the car placed exactly where he needs to prevent Abbott finding an easy way through.
Costa there just starting to put the pressure onto John Harrison up front. So, yeah, this is there's a number of battles going on right down through the field.
Well, these early stages, many of these drivers going the whole distance, certainly Alain Costa and James Abbott, and therefore they want to get the track position. As Costa swoops down to complete the second lap of the race. Then the next couple of pairs of cars are still Abbott looking to line up Jaap Bartels. All the while Swift leads, easing away from Manhal Alos. Then we've got Harrison and Costa, Bartels and Abbott, and then Ferguson and Hoy. And that was a really smooth run through the first corner there for James Abbott. And he gets the exit speed absolutely to perfection. But what he needs to do now is maybe take a little bit of a risk on the brakes into turn 2. If he can force the car to the inside, there's not much that Jaap Bartels can do to defend it. And that's exactly what Abbott does now. Can he get it squared off in time? Jaap Bartels goes for the switchback. They get the power down simultaneously. But I think James Abbott might just have enough here. But Bartels comes alongside him as they head downhill towards turn 3. Abbott moves across, finally able to defend the line and make the move stick.
Yeah, that was a fantastic piece of wheel-to-wheel driving there. You saw as they came out the chicane, he just managed to get the car straight and get on the power early enough to give him sufficient drive. And it's sort of a double apex there. It's a really hard corner to judge as you sort of slide in. You really can't see the exit point. So, yeah, fantastic piece of driving.
And it's one of those corners where it's very easy to get entangled with your rival, but that was nice and clean from both of them. Meanwhile, we have a replay of Terence Woodward scything through the field, already past Jean Gandar and Shaheen Nouri. So that puts Woodward up into 11th place. Gandar and Nouri Just we were talking about how you can get entangled at turn 2, almost giving us an example of that.
Yeah, that's right, and yeah, that's right. He almost became sort of the middle of a sandwich there, but no, good recovery, and yeah, that's going to be an interesting battle, possibly to watch through the middle of the race with Gandhar and Nori, because obviously the relative speed of the two cars is quite different.
So now it's the turn of Chris Hoy in 8th place to chase down Jeremy Ferguson as a pair of them swoop uphill. Now, what I think Chris really learnt in yesterday's race is just by being consistent, running to a good lap time through the race and then letting the race come to you is possibly the route to a good result. But it would appear at the same time, if he can clear Ferguson, he's probably got the potential to go a little bit quicker than Jeremy. But because of the huge amount of aerodynamic grip of these cars, it can be quite challenging to make the move, particularly as we were talking yesterday, these cars are so nicely balanced, they really inspire confidence in the driver, and that means you can brake very late, confident that the aerodynamic grip is going to take you through the corner.
Yeah, and the teams have really started to get the grips with these cars now. Of course, the RXC Spider new for 2015, so it's taken a couple of rounds for the teams really to start to get the best out of the aerodynamics and understand the suspension geometry and the suspension setup is very different from the SR8. That possibly, we see Yap take a very, very wide line there and scatter the dust, but looks like he's recovered and back on course again.
But he has now slipped immediately into the clutches of Jeremy Ferguson. Chris Hoy right behind him. This is the fight for 6th, 7th and 8th place. A lick of flame from Hoy on the downshift as they swoop through turn 9 and climb uphill. Meanwhile, Manhalal's slipping back from James Swift, being caught by Harrison and Costa. Here is another look at it, and that's unusual because Bartels was well into his moment long before he arrived into turn 7. Now, there was a little bit of bodywork that got flicked off there. Hopefully that was just trim rather than anything that's going to particularly affect the aerodynamic flow over the car.
Yeah, that's right, and possibly maybe a marker board out of sight there as well. One of the things we haven't mentioned as well, of course, is that we saw a couple of different strategies in the pit stops yesterday with the SR8s, which are really on a 60-minute race around this circuit are sort of very close to their limit. As we've seen again, this battle really is getting very, very close. Yeah, so we saw a couple of the SR8s refuel yesterday and a few of them not. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see in the pit stops. And it looks like Hoy now is really starting to turn up the heat on Ferguson. Can he make a pass down in this second half of the lap? Yeah,
Chris Hoy just using a little bit of the curb as he swooped down into turn 4. He is looking to line up the move. But Jeremy Ferguson is a very experienced radical campaigner. Very rapid driver in his own right. And therefore, this isn't a case of a driver out of position that Chris Hoy's got to overhaul. This is a couple of evenly matched cars ahead of him. And so, challenge there for Hoy. There is the lick of flame on that downshift. Chance to enjoy it once more. And here is our race leader then at the end of the 5th lap. James Swift surges through. His advantage over Manhalal's just shy of 5 seconds. In 3rd place is John Harrison. 4th, Alan Costa. 5th is James Abbott. 6th, Yap Bartels. 7th, Jeremy Ferguson. 8th, Chris Hoy. 9th is Terence Woodward. 10th, and leading the Supersport class, is Marco Cenchetti from Ricardo Dona and Shaheen Nouri.
Yeah, and going back to Swift there, as you saw in race 1, his plan was to try and do the full run without refuelling, as he did so successfully at Jerez at the beginning of the year. So if he does the same, and with just a 50-second pit stop for him, he's really going to be in a hot seat after the pit stops.
And what that really does is shift the onus onto John Harrison, because he's got a 45-second pit stop, but he elected to refuel yesterday when he handed over to Victor Correa.
Yes, that's right, and I know there was because really with to get the best out of Victor, the team seem to have found that they sort of need to give him the opportunity to really push, and he always seems to drive frustratedly when he's really struggled by fuel. See a great pass there by Hoy, but it looks like Ferguson's immediately on the defence and retakes the position.
Now will Hoy decide to go for it into turn 5? Indeed he does. Holds the inside line, and Jeremy Ferguson can't turn in because Chris Hoy is there, so Hoy makes the move on Ferguson up into 7th position. Now how quickly can Hoy close that gap down to the car of Yap Bartels ahead of him in terms of pit handicap time? Well, it's an additional 15 seconds for Hoy, so he's got that to overhaul, so he's looking at 60 seconds in the pits as the cars plunge downhill. Meanwhile, this is a battle between Ricardo Dona and Shaheen Nouri for 2nd place in the Supersport class. Then we've got that gap back to Andy Cummings. He's got Yanni Hupia just in behind him as well. Yanni, the Finnish driver, making his Radical European Masters debut this weekend as Nuri looks to the inside of Dona into turn 8. That was never likely to end well, and Nuri has to back out of the move because the road really does fall away quite steeply. We were talking earlier, Will, there are a couple of defined overtaking opportunities here, but also because you've got the long straights that follow, you don't want to overcommit to a move and lose all your momentum, because that will take you several laps to close back up.
No, as you found there, because Nori was compromised by turn 7, then the long drive all the way round the end of the lap and into the first corner was sort of affected. So no, it's all about maintaining, because there's so many medium speed corners here. If you can maintain momentum, then that's really the key to a good lap time.
So there is the orange and white car of John Harrison in third place, chasing down Manhal Alos in second. And just behind them in fourth is Alain Costa. Costa got caught in a couple of other people's problems at the start of yesterday's race, but has been in fine form throughout the course of this season and is within an outside shot, I'd suggest today, of maybe snatching a podium.
Yeah, a real shame yesterday. He was caught up with sort of some bodywork damage in the opening laps, and unfortunately had to pit for a new tyre. But no, his pace has been fantastic all weekend, and you know, he's a driver that continues to mature and just get faster and faster.
So they head uphill on that long drag from turn 1 to turn 2. And it's the exit of turn 1 which is all important for a lap time here. If you get that wrong, it will really cost you as you run steeply into turn 2 rather, than you climb all the way through turn 2, and then you've got the long downhill drag towards turn 3. So this trio of cars, they've been in close contention for the past 3 or 4 laps, but nobody's been quite close enough to really challenge just yet. We're 8 minutes away from the opening of the pit window, which is where the strategy element of the race will start to come into play as well. For both Alos and Costa, they're doing the whole race single-handedly, so they can really decide to duck into the pits whenever it suits them best. For John Harrison, there is a degree of strategy before handing over to Victor Correa about when they choose to make their pit stop. And although Correa is more comfortable with a full fuel tank, you just wonder, for the purposes of the race win, whether or not actually sending him out with a target lap time in mind might be more effective.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, one of the things is, although they're carrying 45 seconds, we just see a replay here of a lock-up by Nori and a spin as he, yeah, just slightly misjudged that braking point. We've seen quite a few times this weekend that, you know, because the circuit rears up on you as you come into turn 1, it is really, really difficult to get exactly where you need to brake and turn in, and that looks like that's just caught Nori out.
Yeah, it's a really tricky corner, turn 1, because it invites you to brake very, very late, but because the corner levels off midway through, if you carry a little bit too much speed, then that's what can happen. So Shaheen Nouri, that's going to shuffle him down to 15th place and off the Supersport podium as Harrison begins to come back at Manhal Alos. This battle is now 6 seconds adrift of our race leader, James Swift, as Costa gets a superb run out of turn 2 and is able to really challenge Harrison for the first time. And Alain Costa looks to the inside at turn 3. Harrison moves across, takes the racing line, and Alain Costa couldn't quite squeeze past, but he did manage to carry a reasonable amount of momentum through that third turn, and therefore, running downhill, he's not lost any ground to Harrison.
No, not at all. But no, I was just going to mention a minute ago is that, yeah, although Harrison's carrying 45 seconds and 0 success seconds effectively in the pit stops, because they'll be refueling, it will be a 60-second stop if they choose to do that. So, yeah, it's just a case of balancing whether or not that 15-second deficit that they'll have to take for refueling is sort of refundable in the hands of Correa.
Yeah, interesting strategy consideration. We're almost at 1/4 race distance. James Swift is our race leader from Manhal Alos. John Harrison in 3rd. Alain Costa 4th. James Abbott is 5th. From Jaap Bartels 6th. Chris Hoy 7th. Jeremy Ferguson is 8th. Terence Woodward is 9th. Marco Cenchetti is in 10th and leads the Supersport class. It's Jean Gandar in 11th. Ricardo Dona is 12th. 2nd of the Supersport runners. And then Andy Cummings in 13th. 3rd of the Supersport runners, and Cummings and Bradley Ellis really need a finish there. They've had 3 retirements on the bounce. Yeah,
and that's really hurting their championship standings. They did so well at the beginning of the year, but bad luck sort of dogged them, and they had a double DNF at Silverstone just a few weeks ago. So, no, they really need to get their title back on track and hopefully get a finish today.
So Alain Costa again closes up onto Harrison, heading down towards the third turn. The road just falls away, and then they sort of level out a little bit before they arrive into turn 5, the first of 2 downhill left-handers. I think all the drivers always enjoy racing on a circuit which has got plenty of elevation changes. It just gives that extra challenge, and in particular these really steep downhill turns into 8 and 9. Meanwhile, look at that from Terence Woodward on the grass past Jeremy Ferguson.
Complete commitment there to go from one side right across the bows of Ferguson there and take the position. Yeah, that was very, very driving.
Yeah, if it was that they missed the pit lane closing, they will be hugely frustrated with that. And Woodward recovering well, but he's up into 8th place. They're then staring down the barrel of a pretty long pit stop as well. So Ross Kaiser will be doing extraordinarily well to get himself onto the rostrum. The end of this morning's race. Of course, this is the first of 2 races today from the Radical European Masters. We're back in action again around about 4:30 this afternoon for the concluding race of the weekend before the drivers head off onto their summer holidays.
Yeah, there's a good long wait now before the next round at Monza, which is again another circuit that the Radical racers and particularly the SR8 and RXC Spider drivers absolutely love. Of course, such a high-speed circuit, and then we finish off the year at the incredible Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi.
That well-known European country, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it's a round that the European Masters visited back in 2010 and was really well received by the racers, and really offers a very fascinating and different challenge from the other circuits on the calendar. It's sort of almost street circuit in nature. So yeah, a really good and varied calendar in 2015.
It certainly is, and actually, I mean, Radical racing has always been popular in the United Arab Emirates. Seem to remember seeing plenty of cars racing out there in various bits of footage I've seen over the years. And there is at Spa the non-championship event as well to look forward to, and I think we will be bringing you the coverage of that one at the start of September. So a little bit of a summer break, but then a very intense burst to finish the season for the Radical European Masters. For now, though, we're just a couple of moments away from the pit window opening. There's no change in the order. Still, Alain Costa applying the pressure to John Harrison. Harrison absorbing it at the moment. And I think the big question is going to be, when does Harrison peel into the pits and do they refuel? Because if they do elect to refuel, then that really does swing the advantage in favour of James Swift. If they don't, then, well, Victor Correa can use an educated right foot. There's every chance that he could reel in and pass Swift.
Yes, yeah, and all the while, of course, this battle here is giving Manhal some much needed breathing space. He's able to get on and concentrate on just sort of slowly maintaining his tyres and maintaining his fuel, and hopefully, you know, he'll have an opportunity where he can make it all the way to the flag without refueling as well. So, yeah, I can see this race coming together in the final laps as all these various sort of strategies unwind themselves.
Well, yesterday we saw of the SR8s that Terence Wood and Ross Kaiser, they made the decision to pop some fuel in the car. I just wonder if they're going to roll the dice and not do that for this race, as Costa closes up onto Harrison, heading downhill. And I don't know what Alain Costa did to the car over the winter, but he just seems to have so much more confidence in the braking distance of the SR8 this season.
Yeah, and there's the Radical France have bolstered their team as well in terms of sort of the level of really an exceptional level of support for the drivers and what have you, and he just really seems to have, you say, the confidence to place the car exactly where he needs it this season.
And that's absolutely critical to a performance for the drivers. If they've got the confidence in what the car's doing, then the results will come. And again, you can see Costa closes right up onto Harrison as they arrive into turn 2. He can't quite make the move stick. And then they accelerate out of turn 2 along towards turn 3. And if you do ever get the chance to come and visit the Red Bull Ring, strongly recommend it. Some fantastic spectating points here. Not least, there's a huge grandstand just behind this camera position at turn 3, which offers a wonderful panorama of the whole circuit. As downhill out of 4 into 5. And Costa just sitting behind Harrison. he doesn't want to risk the car, does he? Because that could end the race in one fell swoop. But if he can force that mistake from Harrison or prize an opening, then he's going to be sure to take it.
Yeah, as you say, I think John Harrison would be wise to pit early, and at least that takes him sort of out of that battle. He's going to have with Costa and the potential for trouble, and obviously gives Correa the best chance to make it to the flag. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one for the Nilsson Racing team.
Well, the pit window is open now, and here is a replay of Terence Woodward moving to the inside of Chris Hoy. So Woodward gains another place. That is 7th position now for Terence. But did it last? Hoy tries to draw alongside on the exit 3, but I think he probably made it stick. So it's going to be at the end of this lap, I think, that we'll start to see cars ducking towards the pit lane.
Yeah, all the drivers have to physically have passed the board before they can make the change. This balances up the teams that have pit radios and that don't. So yeah, they won't necessarily be coming on immediately, but they'll all have to pass that board at least once.
Meanwhile, James Swift in and amongst a little bit of the Supersport class traffic, which might possibly prove the prompt to Swift to think about ducking into the pits in the Supersport class. By the way, Marco Cenchetti leads it comfortably. The rest of the class, then you've got Ricardo Donor in second, and then Cummings, Hopia and Nuri all squabbling together for that final spot on the Supersport rostrum. So we're on lap 14 of the race. We're just over 1/3 race distance, and this is the fight for 3rd and 4th place. They've been pretty much inseparable throughout the opening exchanges. Down through turn 8, nobody would appear to be ducking towards the pits as Harrison has to get on the anchors coming out of turn 8 to avoid running wide, but Costa just couldn't quite pounce into turn 9, and Harrison gets away with it. Unlike Jean Gandar, he had a big spin at turn 2 yesterday. That one's a little bit more restrained, but nonetheless that will, I hope it's not caused him a significant problem, as Nuri and Cummings run side by side, and Alos goes past. And was there contact there? There was. Alos touched Nuri as they climb uphill to the recovering Jean Gandar, and they all jink through turn 2. But it just appeared as Manhal Alos moved back online and just clipped Shaheen Nuri on the run from turn 1 to turn 2.
Yeah, that'd be an awakening moment. It looks like, yeah, really, with the traffic being 3 abreast there really was no room going into turn 2 for Alos there, and he was forced to run onto the grass, and that obviously sent him careering across the road.
And where has John Harrison gone? Harrison is missing from this group of cars, and he's not gone into the pits. We saw yellow flags being waved at turn 1 as we picked up that picture. So I just wonder if Harrison has had a spin at turn 1, because he's not come through sector 2 yet. He has come through sector 1 yet. Harrison having a spin for certain, as now Costa looks to line up the move on Manhal Alos as they climb over the hill towards turn 8, and Alos is going to duck towards the pits. So almost certainly will Andy Cummings to hand over to Bradley Ellis, and Shaheen Nuri also elects to make his pit stop now. So that promotes this car, the all-black machine of Yanni Hopia, on to 3rd place in the Supersport class. Meanwhile, in is Terence Woodward's handover to Ross Kaiser.
Looks like they've just taken on a splash of fuel there as well.
And the big question is going to be whether or not Alice elects to do the same. I don't think so. There didn't appear to be anybody in fireproof suits. Alice's pit box. There is Shaheen Nuri to a halt. So the driver change between Andy Cummings and Bradley Ellis. No refuelling for Manhal Alos, who that shake of the head suggests a degree of frustration with the way that the opening section of the race has gone. Now, John Harrison came across the line in 6th place as a result of that spin, so that really is going to hurt Harrison's chances. Jean Gandar is only now back under steam after his spin at turn 2. There indeed is Gandar. He's got Ricardo Donor, and here is the race leader, James Swift. So Swift, who has led ever since the lights went out, is he going to duck into the pit lane on this occasion? No, he's going to head on for at least one more lap. And with the much broader pit window this year in the Radical European Masters, it does mean there is that the element of strategy that's much more pronounced than we've possibly seen in preceding seasons. But it really gives that extra layer of intrigue to the race.
And it gives you an opportunity, as you said, yes, to there's an opportunity to make hay while the sun shines in that pit window period when you've got fewer cars on circuit. You can really choose as to whether to attack then or leave it till later in the race. So it's a wide 20-minute window here, and obviously very slightly with the different race durations. But it looks like and Harrison now finally makes his stop.
Now this is going to be key as to whether or not they're going to put in some fuel. Indeed they are. So that spin for Harrison, coupled with a longer pit stop for refuelling, is going to give Victor Correa quite the task to try and win this one. Harrison clambers out. The fuel goes in. Now here is another look, that moment from Alos as he collected Shahi Nouri, and well, that could have been an absolutely gigantic instant. As it was, they got away with it. Here is the spin for John Harrison, and that's what cost him so much time, in the region of about 15 seconds before he got going. So
a very, very lucky escape there for Alos and Nouri, and Cummings as well. Obviously, he could have so easily been caught up in the melee there. So, lucky escape for all three of them.
James Swift is looking like he is going to wait until we're over half race distance before making his pit stop. So across the line he comes in pursuit of Bradley Ellis, who has taken over from Andy Cummings. Also, Victor Correa then in for John Harrison. Jeremy Ferguson has made his pit stop, as has Chris Hoy, and now Jean Gandar. So Gandar comes to halt. Mechanics just to work on the car, checking the tyre pressures. Now the sort of lap times we're seeing from Swift at the moment, 1 minute 33.1. And what will Victor Correa be able to provide once he gets up to speed? That's probably going to be the big question here, isn't it? Is whether or not Correa, really he'll need to be a second a lap at least quicker than James Swift. And also the same for Ross Kaiser. But Kaiser, with that lengthy pit stop, has fed out a long way back. But he is flying. Kaiser just almost setting the fast lap of the race. So 1 minute 31.6 for Kaiser. So he is on the move. Now, Alos remains in the pit lane. And I just wonder, having seen that replay, whether Alos has potentially picked up some damage to that 61 car, because he's not re-emerged.
Yes, but that's right. But coming back to the field, and I'm just wondering as well if the track conditions are possibly a little bit more optimum today. Of course, the race being earlier in the day, that track temperature is going to be a little lower than it was yesterday, and I think tyre degradation was a bit of an issue at the end of yesterday's 60-minute race, because the temperatures are just so high on track here. Some 45 degrees yesterday, but a little cooler today.
We've got cars 44 and 61 under investigation. That's Alos and Nouri, and no particular surprise why, but yeah, my suspicion is that both Alos and Nouri did sustain damage, because Alos is in the pits and Nouri has pulled off somewhere on track, as far as we can tell. So that is a great shame. Here is Jack Bartels, yesterday's race winner, to hand over to Stuart Mosley. That is a very well-drilled pit stop. Mosley into the cockpit almost before Bartels has brought the car to a halt. There's a little bit of work done to make sure that the air intakes to the radiators are as clear as possible, as Ross Kaiser now sets the fast lap of the race, 1 minute 31.047. Kaiser 13 seconds back from Victor Correa. Correa currently on his first flying lap post pit stops. All the while, Swift, that last lap was a good one, a 1 minute 32.4.
It now holds a good 7.5 second advantage over the rest of the field, currently headed by Alan Costa. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do in the circumstances, and just keeping things calm and setting consistently quick laps at the head of the field.
And that's really all he needs to do, and then it will be a case of inviting the challenge from his rivals to see if they can come at him. But both Correa and Kaiser on good laps at the moment. But Correa, for reference, has emerged from the pits 19 seconds back from Chris Hoy. So
a lot of work to do there for the young Brazilian.
A huge amount to do. So means that probably post pit stops, because Alain Costa and James Abbott are both in now, that Costa and Abbott may well feed out into second and third place, and we're going to see a splash of fuel for Alain Costa as well. So clearly they think that they are marginal and that is a risk that's not worth taking, which I think is really a testament to just how sympathetic with his machinery James Swift is. Because he's putting together very, very good lap times, but he's able to also combine that with the fuel economy.
And we've said this before, he's one of the best gentleman drivers at sort of being able to dictate a pace. If the team need him to do a 132, he can do a 132. If he can do a 33, he's very good at being able to judge exactly what lap time's required and sticking to it. You know, he's very, very good at that, which is obviously an essential trait for top quality endurance racing.
Somebody has decided to kick up the dust through turn 7. We're just over half race distance. We've only got 2 cars yet to make their pit stop. This one of the race leader, James Swift, and also our current Supersport leader, Ricardo Dona. Everybody else has peeled into the pits, but there's still another 9.25 minutes for Swift to make his pit stop if he wants to, and there's absolutely no reason for James Swift to hurry into the pits. He's in splendid isolation out on the track. He's got no traffic around him. He's lapping metronomically in terms of consistency. Now, James Abbott has emerged from the pits. There you see James ahead of Alain Costa. So Abbott jumps Costa in the pits as a result of Alain refuelling. And then there's going to be the question about where is Jeremy Ferguson, Stuart Mosley and Chris Hoy in amongst all of that. Here now is Ricardo Dona. Now the SR3s don't need to refuel. So Dona comes to a stop.
Yeah, of course, the great thing for Swift as well is while he's been lapping around in this clear space, of course, everybody else has pitted. It looks like Alos is slowing there.
Yeah, so Alos is back on track, but a little bit away adrift. It was a very, very lengthy pit stop for Alos. And Shaheen Nouri is also back up and running as well. But that would suggest that maybe the car isn't quite to Alos' liking. He's about to be overhauled as well by James Abbott. So over the crown in the road and the crest in the hill comes Jean Gandar, and Swift showing no signs of making his pit stop on this occasion.
And when he does choose to pit, of course, he's going to have fairly clear air in the pit stops as well. So there's not going to be much chance of him being held up by any drivers entering or leaving their pit boxes. So this is sort of in time to perfection, or it looks like it is, and it's certainly.
And he is currently lapping about a second a lap slower than the pace of Victor Crea and Ross Kaiser. But I think he can comfortably live with that, given the advantage that he's going to be carrying over those 2 cars by the time that he has completed his mandatory pit stop. Crea, meanwhile, is on course for the fastest lap of the race, absolutely flying through the first couple of sectors, waiting for Crea to break the timing beam. It's a 1:30.7 he's looking to beat, and in fact he gets it all a bit wrong through the final sector, so doesn't set the fastest lap of the race. 1:31.2. But the order of those that have pitted is that it's James Abbott, who is at the head of the queue, from Jeremy Ferguson, Stuart Mosley, Chris Hoy, Alain Costa, then Crea and Kaiser. So we're going to see, I think, quite a different looking podium to the one that we had yesterday. It's potentially going to come down a little bit to the appetite of various drivers to do the chasing down. Meanwhile, I think it's going to be either Dona or Chenchetti who leads the Supersport class from Bradley Ellis. Ellis with an awful lot of time to make up, as the 21st lap of the race, 22nd lap of the race is completed by James Swift. He closes on to the tail of the Supersport class leader, Marco Chenchetti.
Yeah, it would certainly seem that Swift is giving himself the opportunity to get past as much traffic as possible, and then obviously that makes the job for his chasing drivers much harder before he chooses to pit at the very, very last minute. And they have done that before, of course, in this championship. Just left it as that pit board came out and dived in time to perfection.
Behind, we've got the battle for second place, which is closing up quite nicely because Stuart Mosley is a couple of seconds a lap quicker than both James Abbott and Jeremy Ferguson ahead of him. And Mosley's got 5 seconds to close to Abbott. As now a challenge for Alan Costa on Chris Hoy. This is for 5th place. And Costa to the inside of Hoy at turn 2. Hoy looks to fight back. They almost rob bodywork as they accelerate on towards the 3rd corner. But Costa has made that move.
Yeah, he's really been very, very effective into turn 2, hasn't he? All of the race, really, Costa, and once more making a fantastic move there. And Hoy gave him just enough breathing space to avoid contact, so some great driving by the pair of them.
Now, the pace that Costa has been running at would give him an outside shot as they pass the Ailey Manhal Alos. Would just about give Costa an outside shot at chasing for the podium. As now here comes the race leader, James Swift. So Swift ducks into the pits. It's going to be a long run down to the 360 Racing team pit box, and I think the entire pit lane is going to be watching to see, is James going to get a breath of fuel into the car? Yes, he is. Well, this suddenly turns it on its head, doesn't it? Because it means a much longer pit stop for James Swift, and suddenly it brings others into the mix.
Yeah, fascinating there, and yeah, they're obviously not whatever they found us left in the tank last night was less than was comfortable. So you know, of course, we had a safety car period yesterday as well, which would have really thrown out their fuel calculations. So yeah, he's effectively lost 10 seconds additional in the pit stop time there, which he didn't want at all.
So here is Alan Costa, who is currently in 5th, but the big question is going to be, as these cars negotiate the top section of the track, is whether or not James Abbott will swoop past at the end of this lap. There is Jeremy Ferguson in 3rd. So these cars are all currently racing the static car of James Swift in the pits. Mosley in 4th, and Mosley setting a very nice pace at the moment in the high 1 minute 31 second bracket. It means that he's catching both Ferguson and Abbott fairly rapidly, because Ferguson is catching Abbott as well, and Mosley catching the pair of them.
Yeah, so this is setting up nicely for a battle, and yeah, all eyes are going to be on the pit exit to see who emerges from turn 1 first.
It's going to be potentially a very exciting end to this race, as Swift, we understand from a timing screen, still static in the pit lane. There goes James Swift now, and I think he is just about going to emerge in the lead, because here comes James Abbott up towards turn 1. There's not a huge amount in it, but Swift is going to just maintain the lead, and indeed he does. And that would suggest, Will, we were caught by surprise, that the 360 team did the maths and worked out they could refuel James Swift, and that would then give them confidence that the car would make it to the flag and still feed him out in the lead.
Yeah, great bit of maths there, and but it's not going to be easy for him, obviously, with this trio of cars behind him slowly bunching up. Then ultimately they're all going to be apexing towards that final last couple of laps.
Yeah, what James Swift would really like is, in fact, Ferguson, Abbott and Mosley to all get embroiled in a little bit of a battle, slow themselves down, and that will give him the opportunity just to begin to break away.
Yeah, and you can see all the while that Swift is now starting to catch those starting to lap some of the SR8s as well, and of course with the relative pace being the same in a straight line, it's going to make it very, very difficult. So the traffic's going to add an extra dimension here.
So we are approaching the final third of the race. James Swift has led all the way. In 2nd place now it's James Abbott. 3rd is Jeremy Ferguson. 4th, Stuart Mosley. 5th, Alan Costa. 6th, Chris Hoy. 7th, Victor Crea. 8th, Ross Kaiser. 9th, in the Supersport class, it's Marco Cenchetti from Bradley Ellis. 2nd in the Supersport class, and 10th, Ricardo Dona completes the Supersport podium. This is the fight for 2nd and 3rd, and Ferguson has rapidly reeled in James Abbott. And Abbott is now going to have to get his defensive face on, because Ferguson, in fact, looking to challenge into turn 1. Abbott doesn't move across to cover the line, and Ferguson eases through. Does he run out of road? Yes, he does, but Abbott on the cutback spins it around. So James Abbott, you could see the thinking. It very, very nearly paid off for him, but unfortunately the car bites, flicks him around, so Ferguson goes 2nd and Mosley up to 3rd.
Yeah, just caught out by the exit curves there, as you say. He realised that if he just gave an inch on the entry, then he'd get the drive on the exit. But unfortunately, circumstances weren't to be.
So Stuart Mosley is the driver to watch here. He's just done his personal best lap of the race, so 1 minute 31.4. He's chasing down Ferguson. In the back of the shot as well, you can see Alan Costa, and Costa is catching Ferguson as well. So Costa has moved up ahead of James Abbott. So the podium placing's far from settled. For James Swift, he'll just be glad to have got through his outlap without the car catching fire like it did yesterday. And thereafter, as we're on the 25th lap of the race for Swift, he just needs to manage his pace, not take any undue risks, let the pack behind do most of the hard work as the pit window is closed, but everybody making their stop reasonably early. And of course, without the intervention of the safety car as well, the race has been able to sort of proceed at its natural rhythm. But Mosley, what does he do this time? It was a 1 minute 34.6 for Ferguson, 1 minute 33 for Mosley. Here's another look at it. Oh, James Abbott, you just could tell he was going for that switchback, and it very, very nearly worked out.
Yeah, we just see another view here. So Ferguson runs out wide, and I think possibly that's a spin in sympathy by Abbott there as he tried to avoid running up the back. Obviously, he was carrying a lot more exit speed.
Yeah, what Abbott was doing is he was just he was getting on the power to accelerate up the hill as early as he could, but the balance of the car possibly unsettled before he arrived at the apex.
Yeah, and very nearly caught Mosley out there as well. So, yeah, very lucky not to collect him.
Well, now, in and amongst the traffic, this might be Mosley's opportunity to do something about Ferguson. That last lap from Mosley, 8/10 quicker than Jeremy Ferguson, but he's now getting into the turbulent air of the second place car of Jeremy Ferguson. They're about to try and lap the very similar machine of Jean Gandart. And this is where the lappery gets a little bit more tricky, because essentially Ferguson's going to have to rely on Gandart getting a slightly slower exit from a turn, as Victor Correa scything past James Abbott. That's for 6th place.
Yeah, really good clean move there. He had that set up nice and early, and really gave James no option there at all but to stay out wide and take the place.
James Swift about to start lap 27, and his lead was almost 6 seconds at the end of the previous lap. It's going to be a bit bigger than that at the end of this one.
Yeah, and a stellar lap from him as well, the 1:31.2. So he's showing no signs. Obviously, without those worries about fuel, he can really push on. So doing exactly what he needs to do at the front of the field.
And Mosley looking to get a good run out of the first turn. The long climb up towards turn 2, and he's got the run here on Ferguson, as they're about to catch Ricardo Donor as well, almost going 3 wide. Mosley sees some space. They do go 3 wide up the hill, and Mosley makes the pass well before the braking zone for turn 2. So Stuart Mosley up into 2nd place. Nicely done from yesterday's race winner. And now the pace of Jeremy Ferguson, which is in the 1 minute 33 second bracket, is giving away half a second a lap to Alain Costa. There's Costa at the back of your shot, who was 6 seconds adrift of Ferguson at the start of the lap, and with 17 minutes remaining could chase down Jeremy between now and the flag.
Yeah, it's not inconceivable with the pace he's doing at the moment, but yeah, again, a fantastic, it just shows the incredible commitment, and these drivers are all very respectful of each other. So a fantastic bit of driving there by Donor as well to sort of realise what was going on around him and give enough space. But Stuart, a very, very experienced radical racer, and has raced at every level all the way up to the SR9 Le Mans car. So yeah, really exciting stuff.
The other driver we couldn't discount yet for 3rd place is Victor Correa. He's only 14 seconds back from Jeremy Ferguson, and at a second a minute, that is his current rate of capture. So this could get very interesting for 3rd as Swift continues on his way, almost 8 seconds clear of Mosley. Ferguson, a 1 minute 33.2 last time round, a 1 minute 32.5 for Costa. So he brings the gap down to 1 minute 32.7 for Hoy, a 1 minute 30.9 for Victor Correa, and Correa now 11 seconds back from Jeremy Ferguson. But Correa has got to find a way past both Hoy and Costa before he gets a crack at Ferguson.
Yeah, he's just side 1.4 seconds out of that deficit from Hoy, so it's only going to take a couple of laps for him to catch him. As we see, again, Hoy obviously just making a pass on Chenchetti there as well to sort of get another lap place. But yeah, with him being built by traffic, this is going to be interesting, and you can see now visibly that gap is much, much closer.
It really is. So we have got 6th catching 5th, catching 4th, catching 3rd, with still a quarter of the race remaining. And here is the driver we were getting all excited about, Victor Correa, in the car that he's taken over from John Harrison. He retired late on yesterday and is looking to make amends in this second of 3 races this weekend in the Radical European Masters. Thank you very much, as ever, for joining us here at the Red Bull Ring as we come to the end of lap 28. Swift and Mosley, not much between them. Now, Jeremy Ferguson, what lap time do we get from Jeremy? 1 minute 32.2, so he elevates his pace as he needed to. Alain Costa, 1 minute 32.2. Hoy, a 1 minute 33.5, and Correa, 1 minute 31.4. So Correa takes another second or thereabouts out of Jeremy Ferguson. Great shot there, the car bouncing off the curb.
Big hop there, and yeah, fantastic piece of opposite lock just to get the car straight back and immediately back on the power. Really used as the car dug back there on the rebound into the tarmac to get the drive up the hill. So both cleanly past Toner there again. So but closer than ever.
And Correa looking so smooth as well. Just that single turn of the wheel, which suggests that everything is going exactly as it should. And now Correa potentially looking to line up the move on Hoy into turn 3. And doesn't Chris Hoy know it? He moves across. Just make sure that he doesn't make it easy for Victor Correa. Correa will be hoping that Hoy glides wide at 4. Doesn't happen. Instead, Correa might look to pounce the inside at turn 5 if he's really feeling the confidence on the brakes. Hoy is well aware of that. Again, just covers the line.
Some excellent defensive driving here. I'm sure he's got driver coach Christian Van talking into Chris's ear and just giving him the guidance he needs to stay calm and keep that RXC Spider as wide as he possibly can.
Now, this is going to be really intriguing how it plays out, because for Correa, the prize potentially is slightly bigger than 5th position, but that's the battle that he's got to sort out first. And once he gets into the turbulent air behind the Spider as well, it could be harder to unwind. Meanwhile, this is not all done and dusted for James Swift, because Stuart Mosley does a 1 minute 30.997 and takes a second out of Swift's advantage.
Yeah, that's right. So for the first time in the entire race, really, we're seeing Swift is really going to have to turn the taps on and make a move rather than dictating the pace. He's now on the back foot.
So Correa looks to climb up and challenge Hoy into turn 2. Again, Hoy defends nice and early. He's going to make Correa do this the hard way and try to find a way around him. Here's that replay of Correa just launching over the curb. Shows how hard he's trying, but now Correa with a reasonably good run down towards turn 3. And Correa's going to try and force this. Great defensive driving from Chris Hoy, boxing Correa out. And
yeah, Hoy says if you want to pass me, you're going to have to do it the hard way around the outside. And yeah, did a fantastic job there just to shut the door at the right moment and leave Correa high and dry. But this is by no means over, and obviously you can see that Correa's closer than ever. And
and that is Alain Costa who goes off at turn 6. So Alain Costa spins away his chances. So this promotes Hoy and Correa into the fight for 4th position. Oh dear, what a pity for Alain Costa. He was going so well. And so, what is the deficit to Jeremy Ferguson for this pair? It is 9.4 seconds. As Hoy and Correa, their pace has diminished, and this is very, very good news for Jeremy Ferguson. James Swift, a 1 minute 32.7, a 1 minute 31.1 for Mosley. Here is another look at it all going wrong for Costa. The car just changing direction on him. And now Correa looks like the move, and this time he's got the inside line to turn 2. He makes sure of it. Oh, but he then just overcommits on the brakes. Oh, they make contact coming out of turn 2. What a slide from Correa as he gathers it up and they make contact. Correa defends and he gets damage to the bodywork as they accelerate towards turn 3. And Hoy grass in the radiator intake as he took to the off-road route as Correa defended desperately, having made that move. And now he's got bodywork rubbing on the rear tyre. That surely is going to prompt a pit stop. Well, it's a real pity to see the battle concluding like that.
Yeah, and the way the car's moving around is possibly some suspension damage there as you see a replay. So
Correa commits to it, just goes in a bit deeply. Hoy Again, the racecraft looks for the switchback, flicks it sideways. That tips Correa sideways. Correa keeps the right foot firmly planted. A bit more contact there. Correa says, no, you're not coming through. Defends. Here was another look at it. It was just the tag from Hoy. And then another tag as Correa corrected the slide. And then the defence as they head towards turn 3. Absolutely nothing malicious in that from Chris Hoy. Correa can be frustrated, but I think when he sees the picture, he'll just realise that both of them were on the limits of adhesion. And as the car went sideways...
Yeah, you see in both the cases of both of them, there a big oversteery moment as they came out of the hairpin, which obviously, put them both on a path towards each other. And then, as Correa's trying to re-hold the position and hold the car steady, then he's just moved across into the path of Hoy again. But,
so, frustration for Correa. They're going to try and, provided there's no damage to the tyre there, I think some magic masking tape might be enough to get Correa back into the race. Now, here is the race leader, James Swift, and whilst the drama has been going on behind, and it really has been, Stuart Mosley has been inexorably easing up onto the tail of Swift. So this is not settled definitively in favour of Swift just yet, as Swift comes to the end of lap 32. And what sort of lap time does he offer up? It is a 1 minute 32.7. Stuart Mosley, 1 minute 31.4. Mosley now just 3.1 seconds back from James Swift.
Yeah, but with just 8 minutes remaining, he's rapidly running out of time to make this happen, though, and it looks like if he's going to. You can see now though that is a much closer gap, isn't it? So yeah, this is going to get really exciting, I think.
1.2 seconds a lap is more than enough for Mosley, at least to have a shot or two at James Swift. In third place now, it is Jeremy Ferguson. Fourth is Chris Hoy. In fifth, we've got Ross Kaiser. Sixth, but yet to emerge from the pits, is Victor Correa. And then Marco Ciancetti next along as our Supersport leader. We've got another car, we understand, which has gone off somewhere between turns 7 and 8.
I'm just wondering if that's possibly a yellow flag for the clean-up of Costa, perhaps.
Well, Alan Costa would appear to be back under power, in fact, because he's come through on the last couple of occasions. So, yeah, somebody has had a little bit of a moment, not sure whom. So that yellow flag out here comes Mosley. Now, what has he been able to do about James Swift this time around? Swift breaks the time beam now. A 1 minute 32.8 for Swift. A 1 minute 31.8 for Mosley. It's another second, just 2.1 seconds between the pair of them. Well, Stuart Mosley, very competent, talented driver. He's been racing at the top of the Radical racing ladder for many years now.
Yeah, and this will do their championship hopes the world of good. Obviously, with the win yesterday, to do two this weekend would be fantastic and really elevate them back up through the championship standings.
So just trying to identify, I think it's possibly James Abbott who is the driver that we've lost, or maybe Ricardo Donut. I think it is Abbott. So the order then is Swift from Mosley, then it's Jeremy Ferguson. In fourth place it's Chris Hoy. Hoy too far adrift of Ferguson now to really catch him between down the end of the race. In fact, Hoy is about to be demoted by Ross Kaiser in fifth. Alan Costa is sixth. Ciancetti seventh in the lead of the Supersport class. Victor Correa drops down. It's Ellis in eighth.
Absolutely nothing between Swift and Mosley in this lap at the moment. So just a 10th. Swift had a 10th advantage in the first intermediate and again in the second. So yeah, there really is nothing between them, and Swift's obviously doing the best he can to respond to Mosley's pace. So
out of the final turn, and this would appear to be a much better lap from James Swift. It is. It's his best lap of the race, so 1 minute 31.1. And just as Stuart Mosley gets a little bit too close for comfort, Swift ups the momentum, ups the pace, and Mosley's charge is temporarily thwarted. Across the line in third, Ferguson, a 1 minute 33.6. Now, the reason why that could be significant is the progress of Ross Kaiser, who may well come across the line in fourth. Indeed, he does, with a 1 minute 31.7. So Kaiser is 11 seconds back from Jeremy Ferguson. Now, depending on how many more laps we squeeze out of this race, there is just an outside glimmer that Kaiser may snatch third place. Meanwhile, Mosley and Swift, nothing to choose between them through the first sector. Down out of 4 into 5. Find out the middle sector on the lap, just on the exit of turn 6. That's going to be really... Oh, and Swift does the fastest middle sector of the race so far.
Yeah, obviously with that car light now, minimal fuel load, the pace is really turning up, and he's left something in the tank to for the end of the race. So yeah, fantastic piece of driving, a very, very considered drive from this solo driver.
Oh, he's a bit of a tease, isn't he, James Swift? Just as we thought we were on for a grandstand finish, Swift reaches into his pocket, sets his personal best lap of the race, and then another personal best lap of the race, a 1 minute 30.9.
Yeah, and he's just got to be careful to keep it clean. I mean, you've got to say, so far, if you look at his driving style, he has been incredibly clean all weekend. Minimal steering inputs, doing exactly what you need to do to get the best out of an SR8 around this fantastic Grand Prix circuit.
And clearly, he'd said to the 360 team, Mosley can get to within 2 seconds, but once we get beyond that, then I'm not having it. And so, depending at the point at which Swift crosses the line, we might be about to embark on the penultimate lap of the race. So, Mosley again slipping back from Swift on this lap, and I think Stuart Mosley possibly realises the game is up. There's no need to unduly push the car and risk it. Meanwhile, fast lap of the race has just been set by Ross Kaiser, a 1 minute 30.6, almost 3 seconds faster than Jeremy Ferguson. And it's all going to come down whether or not, for third place, whether or not Swift crosses the line with more than 3 minutes left on the race clock. I think it will be under 3 minutes, so we will be into the penultimate lap.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, this is going to be fascinating. If he can just maintain this pace for a couple more laps, he's got a light car. It's going to feel really good. Obviously, the tyres are slightly past their best now, and the temperature of the track will have been rising all the way through the race. It's deceptively hot here. There's very, very little breeze. So, yeah, they're really, really going to be right on the limit. And both the cars and also physically, it's hugely hot weather and very, very difficult. And you see now, Kaiser is a lot closer. And
well, that's a lapping of Herpia. So for Kaiser, he doesn't want to be caught in the traffic. We're waiting for Jeremy Ferguson to conclude his 36th lap, which he does now with an elevation of pace to a 1:32.5. Kaiser a 1 minute 31.6, so the gap at 8 seconds. That is going to be too much to do for Kaiser, I would suggest, over the next 2 laps, barring disaster for Jeremy Ferguson.
Yeah, I think a podium finish is just going to elude him this time. But no, he's done a fantastic job to battle back through from the back of the field. I think they can be very pleased considering what might have been.
Yeah, that said, they should have started from pole. We don't know why they started from the pit lane. And the way that the race has unfolded, not quite as they planned, but nonetheless, points potentially mean prizes in Abu Dhabi at the end of the season. And that's surely what they've got an eye on. Meanwhile, Manhalalos is back up to something approaching a reasonable speed, and that's going to make it very hard for Ross Kaiser to lap him.
And so see a replay there of Ross right on the limit and counter steering there to keep the car in a straight line. So
we're about to start the final lap of the race, and James Swift has led every single minute of the hour as he starts the final lap. And after yesterday's disappointment, Swift bouncing back in the best possible fashion this morning here at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, another fastest lap there, 1:38.75 for him. So he really has left plenty in the tank to the end of the race, and has yeah, thwarted Mosley, which is yeah, something of a surprise. But no, he's done a fantastic job.
And perfect strategy as well, because had they not topped that car up with fuel, it would be doubtful whether Swift would be able to risk these sort of lap times late on. So the strategy has played out exactly as they wanted it to. And now Swift just a handful of corners from home. This is only the first of 2 races, of course, today for the Radical European Masters. We are back in action at 4:30 Central European time, which means if you're watching us from the UK, it will be 3:30. So make sure you join us with all the coverage from the concluding race of the weekend here at the Red Bull Ring. But for now, James Swift has put one of the most nicely constructed races together in the Radical European Masters that we have seen for quite some time. He has driven to a perfect pace as he swoops down through turn 8. Just 1 corner remaining, and it is going to be victory here at the Red Bull Ring in the Radical European Masters for James Swift. He accelerates through, the checkered flag goes out now, and Swift takes the victory. 2nd place to Stuart Mosley and Jaap Bartels. And who will complete the podium? That's Victor Correa, who will be, I'm sure, thinking about what might have been in 6th place. And here comes Ferguson now, putting the lap on Jean Gandar. And Jeremy Ferguson, we've not seen much of him, but he has driven beautifully, and he takes the final spot on the podium.
Yeah, fantastic drive by Jeremy there, and again, very considered driving, and was able to maintain the pace and up it when he needed to respond from Ross Kaiser's lap time. So yeah, very good drive from him, and a just deserved podium.
So James Swift takes the acclaim of the marshals and the spectators, and I think also a big thumbs up from Stuart Mosley as well. I can imagine the pair of them will have thoroughly enjoyed that. Ross Kaiser across the line in 4th. Chris Hoy, his strong weekend continues with 5th. And what about the Supersport class? It should be Marco Ciancetti who will win that, but he is yet to come through and take the checkered flag. Well, another very dramatic race, and as happened yesterday, Will, it really suddenly sparked into life at about 2/3 race distance. We had that attempted pass from Victor Correa and Chris Hoy, which probably gave us the most visceral drama, but then we had the strategy dimensions playing through, and for the final race of the weekend, a different set of success seconds, so we're going to have a different narrative once more.
That's right, yeah, and it shows how this success second system works so well.
So let's have a look then at the results from this intriguing race in the Radical European Masters. The win for James Swift, 2nd place to Jaap Bartels and Stuart Mosley, 3rd to Jeremy Ferguson, 4th to Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser, 5th to Chris Hoy, Alain Costa in 6th. 7th and winning the Supersport class was Marco Ciancetti from Andy Cummings and Bradley Ellis, 2nd Supersport runners in 8th. John Harrison and Victor Correa recovering to 9th, and Shaheen Nouri completing the Supersport podium in 10th from Ricardo Donor, Jean Gandar and Manhal Alos. Unfortunately, we lost James Abbott along the way, but Yanni Herpia was running at the flag, albeit after several trips to the pit lane. So in to part ferme for James Swift. He unhooks himself from the cockpit and will shortly be escorted up to the podium. Handshake from Stuart Mosley, and likewise from Jaap Bartels. I think they really appreciate just what a fine drive that was from Swift. 3rd place finisher Jeremy Ferguson. Beautifully judged performance. And he offers his congratulations as well to Swift. So they will shortly be escorted up to the Red Bull Ring rostrum. And we will get underway with the podium ceremonies in fairly short order. Hot work for all the drivers as well. Although it's still pretty early in the morning, it is showing all the makings of being a sweltering day. So let's take a look back at the highlights of an excellent race. It was Swift who led into the first turn from Alos and John Harrison, Jaap Bartels and Alain Costa. The next couple of cars through. Some good scrapping going on behind as Jaap Bartels was able to overhaul James Abbott briefly, but Abbott looking to fight back at him. Scything through from a pit lane start was Terence Woodward. And then Chris Hoy was another driver on the move as he picked his way past Jeremy Ferguson. This was all pre-pit stops. Ferguson, though, looking to fight back, but Hoy eventually making the move stick to the inside at turn 5. Shaheen Nuri trying very hard in the Supersport class, and he was rewarded despite that spin with a trip to the podium. Hoy and Costa enjoyed a very close scrap. Well, after the pit stops, Jeremy Ferguson picking his way past Abbott, and Abbott trying a little bit too hard. The other driver who was looking to fight his way to the rostrum was Victor Crare, but as he went past Hoy at turn 2, they both kicked out wide with the power steer, resulted in a little bit of contact to Crare's car, and therefore he was forced to pit with damage to his bodywork. Hoy continuing on his way to 5th, Crare eventually to be classified in 9th place. All the while, though, it was James Swift who led from lights to flag despite the late charge from Stuart Mosley. So it was victory for James Swift. Stuart Mosley and Jaap Bartels in 2nd, with Jeremy Ferguson completing the podium. And then in the Supersport class, Cenchetti winning it from Bradley Ellis and Andy Cummings, with Shaheen Nuri completing that rostrum. Well, we will be back at 4:30 this afternoon for the final race of the weekend in the Radical European Masters. Until then, from Will Brown and myself, Ben Evans, thank you very much for your company, and we'll see you later on.